All right, here we are in a strange economy, and I'm not talking about Wall Street, I'm talking about Main Street. Some of you may have noticed, and we're not going to get into politics as much as that's going to disappoint some of you, but there was a government shutdown. There was inflation that supposedly is under control. There are prices that are still high. Unemployment is higher than it's been since October of 21. So there are some things happening in the economy and on Main Street. So you may have noticed it in your businesses. I've talked to business owners that say, yeah, things are tight. People aren't buying right now. We're getting less orders. Our margins are reduced. Things are kind of weird. We're waiting to see what happens in the first quarter. Well, waiting is not a great strategy. So what kinds of things can we do right now in an economy that is looking at some economic headwinds? Things are not selling as fast as they were before, and certainly not for as high of a price as they were before. And that's where I bring my prop in. I brought this big knife. This is my favorite knife at the house. I use this to cut the fat off of meat and chicken for my dog. And you have to be very careful with how you cut the fat, because you don't want to cut the meat. And that's what we need to do in business. We want to cut the fat, not the fuel, okay? What happens in entrepreneurship? Things go south, business not going well. Hey, let's cut marketing. Let's cut salespeople. Let's cut all these other things that we don't think about that affect our business. I was reading about Manhattan and how some of the buildings were cutting back on their security. But what happens is that even though the security guard hours maybe save the building owner some money, what happens to the long-term effects or psychological effects of the people that live there that now feel like their building is not secured? Maybe they start telling people that the building's not secure and they dissuade other people from moving there. So if we start cutting things arbitrarily without thinking about the ramifications and the repercussions down the road, that could actually cost us more money. So what kinds of things should we maybe be doubling down on? Training for sure is something good for our staff or for ourselves, because if we can think about new ways of bringing in revenue, we don't have to worry as much about cutting expenses. But there are a lot of expenses we can cut. So meals and entertainment, perhaps we can cut from there, right? I'm glad Timmy Tickets isn't here, because he'd be mad if I say cut the Spurs ticket budget or sell some of your season tickets for revenue. But certainly unnecessary business trips. And let's say you can cut labor, but you want people doing sales. So maybe you cut the salaries of somebody doing sales, but you increase the amount of commissions. So you say, look, I can pay you on the back end based on what you can bring in. So we're doing that exercise at Sharkmatic now. We had 2 people that decided to make career changes, and instead of replacing them, we're going to go without them for a certain period of time. If we can do without them long term, then the current staff makes more money because I allot some of that salary to that staff. Now they take on added responsibilities and more hours. But these are some of the things we have to start thinking about. How do we cut the fat without cutting the fuel in our business as things are starting to slow down in the economy? My hope is that first quarter, second quarter, things will be great. But I'm not going to wait to see what happens before I start taking action. So as we end 2025 and we're going into a traditionally slow time of period for a lot of businesses, you know, the holidays and people are distracted. Beverly, I think you've said a lot of your buyers are not even around right now, right? So you have to get your orders in. The idea is, what kinds of expenses can we cut without cutting the fuel that's driving our businesses forward?